And welcome William Henry to the show. William, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It's nice to see you, Eric.
You too. How are you handling the pandemic?
So far, so good.
Have you been able to get a haircut?
My wife cuts my hair, so I'm a very lucky guy.
Look at this. It's just my wife's, the kids are looking, we just look like we're cavemen now. So it's a lot of, anyway. So I want to jump right into this. And the first part of the show, I want to talk a lot about you and a lot of the things that you've got going on. And I just want to start out here. I have some notes, and I think we have some really neat things we're going to talk about. So first of all, you and I, we met in Nashville about right before the pandemic, about 3 months ago. And you're originally from Michigan. You've been living in Nashville for many, many, many years, and that's home for you.
Yes, I grew up in Detroit, the Detroit area. I moved to Nashville when I was 19, and golly, that's about 38 years ago. Can't believe it.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Do you like the weather down there better?
I love Nashville. It's just a wonderful place. The people are awesome, and it's got so many mysteries about it too that keeps things really exciting.
So 30 years of research, 18 books. You've got 4 television shows, I believe, on Gaia. You have Ancient Aliens. And do you know what the number one search result for you is?
No, I do not.
So if you type in William Henry, Ancient Aliens, the little thing that autofills, necklace. So where did you get that necklace?
That's really, really funny. Actually, my best friend went to Egypt with me. I think it was actually the first time I went to Egypt. She was with me, and she bought it for me as a gift. I wasn't running the tour. I was a guest speaker on the tour, and she thought it looked like me, so she got it for me as a gift, and I never took it off. And that was in 2002 or 2003.
Wow. It's just funny to see people bring that necklace up. I mean, I see it all the time.
I know. Yeah, I've got it on now. And I get a lot of emails from Ancient Aliens viewers saying, hey, where'd you get that necklace? I want to have one. So actually, my wife Claire started having them copied, duplicated in Cairo by master craftsmen. Mine's an antique. But we found some craftsmen that are able to duplicate it, and so there's a small cadre of people out there that wear my necklace.
That's crazy. I love it. I ended up buying some cheap Chinese things recently, and it was like they look so nice on Alibaba, but when I got them, they didn't look very good. So, okay. 15 seasons of Ancient Aliens. Now, I don't know if you've been there since the very beginning, but 185 episodes. When did you first join the cast?
I joined the cast in the end of the second season, I believe it was. They were doing an episode. Somehow they learned about the work I had done decoding the ascension symbolism in the dome of the U.S. Capitol. Mm-hmm. And they were doing an episode not about ascension or specifically about the Capitol, but about George Washington. And so they called me up to D.C. and we did an interview. And next thing I know, I'm a regular on the show.
Wow. Have you enjoyed doing it? I'm sure you have.
Immensely. I mean, it's a wonderful show. I mean, the fans are phenomenal. The researchers they have on staff are awesome. They dig things up that it's practically like Christmas for me. I mean, what happens is for any given episode, they might ask me 15 or 20 questions. They'll send the questions and I have to go research out the answers. And wow, the things that they have dug up, this whole story of the gods and ancient humanity just keeps getting broader and broader and broader.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my questions is do you guys just you don't shoot every week, you maybe once a month or something like that, or
Approximately, yeah. During the times that we're in production, I'll be in LA. I can be in LA anywhere from 2 to 3 times a month sometimes.
Okay.
We work really hard on the show, and again, the producers are due so much credit for all the work that they do. And Prometheus, they're just awesome. And so I'll fly out to LA where we do our shoots, and then sometimes like last season I was in Italy for the show. That was awesome. I was also in Vancouver for the show, so we were able to go out in the field a little bit more this past season. And I don't know what the plans are now for the future of the show. I'm hoping that it continues.
I do too. I've seen people discussing whether or not you guys are going to run out of subjects, but I just don't think that that's possible.
Because then there's always new information that comes along too, so you can revisit older episodes and update them. But it's impossible to cover every subject in this genre. It's just so vast.
Yeah. Out of all of the episodes that you've done, which one do you think is your favorite?
Well, I love the Da Vinci episode.
Painting in a dimly lit chapel. Before lighting the candle, you don't see anything. Right. You light the candle, and the light of the flame illuminates the painting, and there emerges against a dark background St. John the Baptist.
And the pointing upward to heaven, saying, I'm from the light, I'm witnessing to the light. He's pointing to another realm.
Oh yes, this is where the divine wisdom comes from. This is the source of everything. The first words of St. John are, I saw the light, I will come to this earth.
Wow.
I also loved the Stonehenge. The recent Stonehenge episode was awesome. So I would put those definitely at my top episodes.
Well, then that's a good segue into some of the shows that you have on Gaia. I'm fascinated by a lot of the symbolism and the things that you've picked up on, and of course your knowledge of art history is vast. I had no idea that you went that far back into that knowledge.
I love it. I mean, because the artists usually are going to be commissioned by either a high church authority or someone of that nature, sometimes even a political figure. They're often going to be used to transmit or encode esoteric information, and I'm just love rooting all that out, learning the history, the story of the artists, and the ultimate purpose of the art, and of course the secrets that they encode.
Yeah, I'm a big William Blake fan. I think we talked about that before, and some of the imagery that comes out of that guy, plus the poetry, he's a dark guy.
No, I mean, Claire and I had a chance to see the largest William Blake collection. It was an exhibit at the Tate Museum in London that took place earlier in 2020, and it was just magnificent.
Tell me about the Lost Secrets of Jesus, the wand and the ring. I did start watching that, and I've just not had a chance to finish it yet. But
right, so this started. I've been researching the Holy Grail during the mid '90s. I was following FDR's quest for the Grail, as well as the reincarnated Jesus in Mongolia in 1933. And along the way, I stumble into the Vatican's collection of their early depictions of Jesus, 2nd to 4th century. These are on sarcophagi. They're in the Vatican Museum today. And they portray Jesus as clean-shaven, short-haired, sort of like Apollo, with a rod or a wand in his hand, performing all the miracles, raising Lazarus, turning water into wine. All the miracles they document were performed with this rod or wand. And then after the church councils take place, 325 AD, the wand disappears. And it's like, okay, well, why did they get rid of Jesus' wand? Did he have one to begin with? Was he a magi? Yes. Why did they have to eliminate that imagery? I mean, after this time, then they show Jesus waving his hand when he's performing the miracles. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the reason is because he looks too much like the Egyptian god of alchemy, Thoth, who also wielded a rod or a wand when he raised King Seti as Osiris with a rod or wand. And so I think what they were doing is trying to sever that connection to Egypt and maybe even to Mesopotamia as well.
The Ascension Keepers. Now, I want to dwell a little bit out on Ascension, because that seems to be a topic it's trending quite a bit right now.
The Essenes have an aura of profound mystery about them. Becoming perfect light humans is clearly the goal of the Essenes. They knew mystical secrets, and these secrets had to do with human transformation into celestial beings and ascension. Why were they called Essenes? A name awarded them doubtless in recognition of their holiness. Holiness means to be luminous, radiant, and angelic. From this investigation, we will piece together the ascension teachings and disclosure of extraterrestrial beings left for us by the Essenes, just in time for the arrival of the new humanity in the modern ascension and disclosure movement. I'm William Henry, and this is Ascension Keepers.
Sure. The basis of ascension is the idea that we are only temporarily inhabiting the earth plane, that we came from somewhere else, and we can ultimately return to that source place. And that is a basic definition of ascension. And as relates to my work, what I've tried to do that's different, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that channel and talk about ascension as a new age kind of spiritual practice. And they may not be aware that, in fact, it is the oldest human story. There was a group of gods that came to Earth. They were called the Anunnaki. They came here to assist humanity in their ascension. How do we know that? That's what the oldest Sumerian stories describe, is the gods came down, and the first thing they did after they created the first human, Adapa, is they took him on an ascension trip back to the home world of the Anunnaki.
That's
okay?
right.
That's the oldest human story. In fact, all of the oldest human stories are about ascension. An Anunnaki goddess named Inanna descends through 7 halls or holes in space to the throne of her sister, Ereshkigal. It's another ascension story. The Epic of Gilgamesh, an ascension story.
Absolutely.
All of human history is a quest to return to our original source place. And that is essentially what ascension is. And then along the way, what they talk about is that the way we ascend is to become a perfect being. And to be perfect means to be whole, holy, complete, and compassionate. And so I started using that word perfect as sort of like a golden needle to weave my way through all these ancient stories. I mean, again, going back to ancient Sumeria, Mesopotamia, weaving through Egypt, on over to India, into early Christianity, into Islam. The fundamental premise is that we are imperfect beings, but we can become perfect. And when we become perfect beings, then we have the ability to ascend and return to our source place.
Perfect organically, because you are also, you're an advocate against transhumanism, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm opposed to the idea of permanent transhumanism. Putting on a pair of glasses, augmenting the human body, fine. Contact lenses, fine. Anything that is temporary or removable by yourself, I'm okay with. But when they start talking about mandating the implantation of chips with vaccines like we're doing today,
yep,
that's a no-go, non-starter.
And so we've got people like Elon Musk, who is wanting to be able to put chips in your brain and do all of these things. You've got Ray Kurzweil, who I've always been into him. I love was it the Spiritual Machine and the Singularity is Near. You came up with a sort of a play on words. The Singularity is Near, right?
Right.
And, the idea of, Kurzweil's thing is, to live the next 20 years in order to live forever. He's going to have
that's not the object of our life. Our object is not to mummify our bodies, which is what transhumanism is. They want us to live in this body for hundreds of years.
Right.
When, spiritually speaking, our quest is to ascend from this place, first to transform it into a planet of love, light, and righteousness, and then to return to our source place. It's not to encase ourselves in this technology under the control of people like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, wackos like Elon Musk. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You want these people in your head telling you what you can think and what you can do? Man, give me 100 hits of acid over that any day. Just let me out of here, because those people, they couldn't get themselves across the street, let alone tell me how to move my soul into a higher dimension.
And see, while I had always been a person who had studied Kurzweil, when I started reading some of your stuff, you made perfect sense, because you put forth the notion that we were hindering ascension by trying to, use all of these methods of living forever, because it's not natural. And it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, when you studied the history of ascension, as I have, and I call myself an ascension scholar, and I don't know how many ascension scholars there are out there, but I made it my business at least the past 10 years to be looking at this from a very deep and even an academic perspective. I'm not channeling this. I'm not coming up with this on my own. I'm not professing I'm the reincarnation of every important person that's ever walked the planet. Yeah. And therefore I'm qualified to teach you about ascension. No, I do research, okay? And I provide source material that people can follow. And all these mystical traditions say the same thing, is that we don't belong in these flesh and blood bodies, that they are a temporary apparatus for us. They are to be used for the specific purpose of ascension. And what we want to do is ultimately transcend the flesh, okay?
Right.
And two schools emerged. One was that we could remain and must remain organic and do this through maybe ascetic lifestyles of meditation and focus on developing our light bodies, so forth. And then a second track emerged around the 12th century with the introduction of technology. And the belief became fairly widespread that technology was a gift from God, and that God wanted us to have this technology in order to accelerate our ascension. Mm-hmm. Okay? Ray Kurzweil, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, these people are not about accelerating ascension in any way, shape, or form. And for them, it's all about taking control and power over the human body. Okay, mm-hmm. And so the only way to remain on a pure ascension path is to avoid augmenting your body with that technology, avoid the implantation of chips, and relinquishing, therefore, control over your mind, body, and soul.
We've gotten this far. I want to step back just a little bit, and I want to get kind of the roots of what was that moment when you received that call to adventure, or that call to action, or you stepped out the door, across the threshold into this new world of I mean, most people don't plan to be an investigative mythologist.
No.
In Nashville. It's like there was something, I would guess, that triggered this journey that's become a lifelong journey.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it happened for me in 1982. I was a sophomore in college. I was going to a small Southern Baptist college, the kind where chewing gum, dancing were all prohibited, right? Mm-hmm. And yet there were a group of us that were there to get an entertainment music business degree. It was a really strange mix, right? This hardcore Southern Baptist college opens up its doors to these musicians and people that want to go work on nearby Music Row or go work in Hollywood or whatever. And so here I come from Detroit, having no knowledge about the Bible whatsoever. I mean, in my home, the four apostles were Waylon, Willie, Chris Christopherson, and Johnny Cash. And Sunday morning was my father breaking out the records, and Sunday morning coming down. It was
right.
That was church, okay? And so then I come to Nashville to go to this school to become an entertainment lawyer. I play guitar and I love music, and I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. And so here I come, fish out of water now, moved to Nashville, come to this school that's a bunch of Bible thumpers, and I know nothing about the Bible. Again, the apostles are Waylon, Willie, Chris, and Johnny, and a few others, of course, Earl. And so I'm in a sophomore class, and a professor assigns us to review a book whose implications would impact Christianity. Write a 3-page review of this book. So off I go to the bookstore, and I find this brand new international bestseller called Holy Blood, Holy Grail. It caused a sensation when it came out, because it said the crucifixion was a hoax. Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married. They had children. They moved to southern France after the crucifixion. There's a little tiny village, a little hilltop village called Rennes-le-Château that still preserves their secrets. And oh, by the way, the Catholic Church exterminated as many as 1 million men, women, and children in southern France to keep the real teachings of Jesus and Mary Magdalene from becoming widely known. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's this parallel mystery tradition that you're talking about? I mean, I was suddenly locked onto and fixated on that. I wrote a 44-page review of the book, was flunked in the class, and invited to go continue my education elsewhere, which is what I did. And that was the power pack. There was something in that book that sent me off on this track to find, okay, well, I want to know if you're saying traditional Christianity is not the real teachings of Jesus, then what are the real teachings of Jesus? And so I just started on that path of self-studies at that very moment, and have continued ever since.
That's a pretty amazing story. Very much like the story that Sitchin tells of how he got started on his own. There's always that pivotal moment, and I just wanted to get there and try to find out what it was with you, because I'm always fascinated by what makes a person just change,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what got me started. And I had two choices. It was either going to be Holy Blood, Holy Grail, or it was a book about how William Shakespeare was, in fact, a real life Francis Bacon. And what are the mystic secrets hidden in the Shakespearean sonnets? And part of me wishes I could have studied that track, but I would have probably ended up in the same place anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. As a theater major, we went through all of those things, the Ben Johnsons, and then, there's a fascinating Christopher Marlowe, I believe, was another one that they thought was Shakespeare.
Yeah,
it is. It really is. Okay, let's go on a little further here. And so, what is it like? Do you actually go to California or whatever to videotape your shows for Gaia, or are you doing those in Nashville?
No, those are actually done in Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're based actually in Louisville, Colorado, which is basically Boulder. They're right next door.
Okay, so now I didn't know much about Gaia until, like a lot of people, I kind of heard about this cosmic disclosure that they had on there. And for about 6 episodes, they had me hook, line, and sinker, the Corey Goode, the secret space program.
We are interviewing a truly remarkable man, Corey Goode, age 45, originally from Texas, and you still live in Texas actually. And what he has done here is to come forward as an insider and share with me more information about what's really going on behind the scenes in the so-called secret government and secret military programs and their development and industrialization of our solar system. It's a truly remarkable story because I've interviewed dozens of insiders over the years with classifications sometimes 35 levels above the President of the United States. I've withheld about 90% of that information from the public because A, it could get people killed, B, I didn't want to release things that would then spoil me being able to figure out who the real insiders were. Corey came along, and he not only knew the 90%, he had many other puzzle pieces that I had been looking for. I knew there was something that people weren't telling me, and it all came together. So, Corey, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And then now we're seeing all of this, these lawsuits and things like that. Jay Widener, I guess, is getting sued. Gaia's getting sued by Corey, and there's just a kind of a mess there. And now they've taken all of the episodes down.
No, I really have no idea. I mean, I've known Jay since the mid '90s and worked with him at Gaia. I was actually on the 2 most popular episodes of Cosmic Disclosure.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which was interesting. And, just kind of, I just try to avoid those guys. They really, I don't know, I'm not sure where they're coming from or what they're actually trying to do. I feel bad for Jay. He's, always been a good guy to me, and I'm sorry he's got these legal issues. I'm sure he's put in a position now to kind of defend his honor because he was the one who vetted Corey Goode.
Yeah.
I never would have, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, from the very first time he opened his mouth, it's like, this is.
There was some life on Mars. There was some small animal life that mainly is burrowing, that digs. There's plant life on Mars that's very, what would you call something that grows in a desert, very robust, or there was this one bush that was purple and red that had huge thorns on it.
But some people, loved it. They loved it. And hey, that's fine. To each his own,
Well, we needed it to be true. I needed that to be true. It's like, I love the idea of a secret space program. It was fascinating. It was new, uncharted territory.
Right.
Something, that we kind of latched onto. But spending 20 years on the force, and then they put you back in your bed when you were 6 years old, and you became. That's what's the word?
I couldn't do the mental gymnastics required to follow along with it, and the suspension of disbelief and all of that just is not for me. Like I say, in fact, when I sat down with Corey and David for those interviews, David's first question was, "Do you think Corey Goode is crazy?" And I'm like, I don't know. All I'm here to say is, in my research and my Gaia program, The Awakened Soul, I was talking about these blue angels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jay saw that and was like, "Oh my God, you're the first person to validate what Corey's actually talking about." And that was not my intention, because Corey had never heard of a lot of the things that I was talking about, which I found that to be odd. Mm-hmm. If he's who he says he is and had all these connections, how could I know more than he does about the blue avians that he kept talking about?
That's right.
That didn't really make sense to me. And I wasn't trying to ambush him or anything in the conversation, but I'm just showing him these things. And the whole time I'm thinking, how can you not know this?
Yeah.
How could you possibly not know this? Right. And so that always was like a red flag to me, that if this is a person that maintains who he says he is, I don't know. I just had those questions.
He had a lot of things to remember to keep that story straight. And, he came out and basically said that everything Sitchin had said was wrong because he actually spoke to the Anunnaki and they told him, that this was the way this worked and this is the way this worked. And he was trying to become, take Sitchin's place and to discredit Sitchin, which as the person making the documentary, I have a personal devotion to the memory of Zecharia Sitchin and people like that who think they can kind of ride on the coattails of that. Makes me crazy. Kind of like your friend Mike Heiser. I take offense to people who try to tear down someone's work after, Sitchin spending 30 years or so, researching this stuff. And some guy from University of Wisconsin at Madison, who becomes the greatest Bible scholar of all time. And
he was a real wild card there for a bit. I mean, I don't know. I think brilliant guy, came in, if maybe his approach was a little friendlier, instead of trying to destroy and walk over dead bodies in order to get to where he wanted to go. He could have been, a person that's a little more cooperative, but he didn't. Instead, he decided to come in and attack the biggest gun in the field. And that's what egomaniacs do. If they're going to come in, they're going to try and prove themselves. They're not going to pick on somebody small. They're going to go pick on somebody really big. And, that's the approach that he took.
Well, you ended up doing a rebuttal to some of the things. I think it was one of the tablets, and you wrote a really nice letter. You kind of said what you wanted to say, and then he came back and posted it online and put, your writings were in gray and his were in red or whatever, and he didn't give you the chance to, he just wanted to go and prove you wrong as well.
He did. It was kind of fun because he felt like he was the professor, and I'm going to grade this paper. And it's just like, look, jerk, nobody really cares about who you are anyway. And if this is going to be your approach, it's not going to get you very far, which in the end it didn't. Yeah. So and I was approaching it from just a real open-minded perspective. He came in and he said Sitchin is wrong, and Sitchin has raped the Bible. Mm-hmm. And he challenged Sitchin and Lawrence Gardner, Whitley Strieber, I think maybe Graham Hancock, and me, and all others who raped the Bible. Like the Bible is his personal purview.
Right.
Only he can interpret the word, right? Mm-hmm. And we have no business interloping or trespassing on his personal property. Sorry, Mike. Mm-hmm. And so nobody else paid him the time of day. And I'm like, I'm your Huckleberry. Let's talk, Mike, because I've got questions about this too. And I just really want to learn, because I want to know for my personal satisfaction, as well as to make sure I'm giving the best information I can to people that read my work. So what she got? And I think I put out a paper first, or maybe he put something. Yeah, he said Sitchin is wrong, and here's all the reasons why.
Yep.
I remember, it's been a while since I've read this, but I do remember laying out my methodology. I mean, at that time, I was very deep into the symbolism and the word plays and puns of the language of the birds. Mm-hmm. And this is a language system that was used by the alchemist Fulcanelli. The great alchemist said that the language of the birds was the language spoken by Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And it's English, okay? Right. And King Solomon used the language of the birds. It has this whole history in the esoteric sciences of people utilizing phonetic resonance. If a word sounds like a word in English, then you can interpret that word in English. Okay, it's wacky, it's right-brained, but it's been used for centuries. And so, what does Heiser do? He's got a degree in linguistics, I believe, or Bible, whatever it is. I can't remember. But in the first sentence of his rebuttal to me, he says, "Friends, William Henry is insane. He gets his information from birds."
Oh my God.
And it's like, oh my God, Dr. Michael S. Heiser, you don't even have the scholarly gumption to do a 1-second Google search to find out what the language of the birds is. And instead, you're going to come over and try to lop my head off. That was his whole game. He was not interested in learning. He wasn't interested in promoting learning. He was solely interested in expanding that already giant ego and trying to knock everybody off their pedestal so he could be the guy on the pedestal.
You're absolutely right. And, he did a lot of damage. And I think that damage continues today, because his website is still up there, and, the sitchiniswrong.com. And if you look at, and you probably don't give him the time of day, but because I've been researching him, a lot of his lectures, he teaches demonology and things like that, and the invisible foes, and but he has those followers, and those people who at one time would have, really gotten into what Sitchin was saying. He's managed to turn them away from that, and personally, I think it's a huge. It was just a screw up on his part, because there were so many people that will never read Sitchin just because that guy said,
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, that was his MO from the very beginning. He was desperate coming out of college, trying to make an income. And the best way he was going to do it was to, attack somebody else instead of saying, here is my alternative text. And he wrote some novels and things like that. But, I just don't trust anybody that tries to build an audience solely by taking advantage of another person in their career.
No, and I'm with you, and it's aggravating. I've invited him so many times, and I've even gotten to the point where I'm going to post pictures of my pugs online because he's a pug lover. So we have 2 pugs, and I thought maybe I could I could get in that way, but he will not. He just won't. He won't do it. So, do you have another show in the works on Gaia?
Not at the moment, no. I'm waiting to see if we're going to do a second season of Ascension Keepers, which I would love to do. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, we haven't made any decisions yet.
Okay. Now, also part of your day job, you lecture and you give tours. And
yes.
Like I saw that, I guess they were canceled because in March, you weren't supposed to be going to Egypt or France or someplace?
We were in Egypt in March, yeah. Yeah, we were in Egypt in March.
Okay, so you got home just in time, I suppose.
Yeah, we did. In fact, we were the last flight into Nashville before they stopped the international flights.
Together. So if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little bit about Zecharia Sitchin.
Sure.
And we'll go from just the very beginning. When did you first find out about him? Had you read von Daniken first and then ended up, like most people, it was von Daniken and then they needed more, so they went to Sitchin. How did you go about doing it?
Yeah, I actually first heard about von Daniken in the early 80s, mm-hmm. But I didn't read Sitchin until it was 1991. And I had, at that time, I was actually writing children's books. I had developed a series of books based on a character called Junior Cosmic Egg, the story of a cosmic egg named Junior who wanted to grow up to become his own universe. Oh. And I was out promoting these books and talking about kids in the new consciousness. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I was on the Whole Life Expo lecture circuit. I was interviewing parents and 6 and 7 year olds that claimed that they had experiences with angels and ETs and Jesus and these types of experiences. And I can't remember how I first became aware of Sitchin, but 12th Planet suddenly came into my hands. Mm-hmm. And I realized, wait a minute, this is where I really want to go. This is amazing material. So I started to phase out of doing the children's books work and the kids in the new consciousness and started to shift over into the realm of the Anunnaki and ancient astronaut theory, as we call it today, mm-hmm. and all those subjects. And it must have been about this time I'm reading all of Sitchin's books I can get my hands on. And I soon published, it was actually 1996 that I published a book called The Peacemaker and the Key of Life, where I was documenting the recurring incarnations of a religious figure that's often called the peacemaker, and putting together this story that perhaps this is the same figure reincarnating over and over again. And of course, Ningishita in the Sumerian tradition, beginning with Sitchin, was the originator of this line or lineage of these peacemakers. Mm-hmm. And so that became sort of the dovetail then of moving more and more into the Zecharia sphere.
You wrote your first book, and you were a big Sitchin fan, and you were very proud of your first book. And one of the first person that's going to get a copy is Zecharia Sitchin. So I'll let you tell me the rest.
Yeah, so the book was The Peacemaker and the Key of Life. And again, tracking the incarnations of this religious figure that goes all the way back to the Sumerians. And I finished the book and I sent it to Zecharia just to say, wow, thank you for all the research that you brought forth in your books. And I was able to utilize some of this in my book and wanted you to see what I was doing. And expecting on my end, I'm thinking, wow, I might get a letter from him. He might give me a phone call, something, right? Well, I did get a letter from him. And the letter was actually a bill because I had used 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5, something like that, illustrations from his book.
Yep.
And he sent me a bill for $125 per image, saying these are my images. What are you doing? If you're going to use them, you got to pay me. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, of course, right? And I'm totally embarrassed because I'm actually on my way to Denver for the first Sitchin Studies Days. This was a major event in Denver in the summer of 1996. Father Charlie Moore was there. Zecharia, of course, was there. Dr. Nick Begich was there. So was Dr. John Lilly as well. And it was mostly devoted to Sitchin. And this is in part why I wanted to send her the book, because I knew I was going to be meeting him. And it's like, oh my God, I just sent it to the man. And whoa, what a big mistake that was, right? Long story short, some of his friends, supporters that I knew, intermediated, and Zecharia was very, very forthright and just really, I'd say he was kind about it. He explained, he said, look, I paid for these illustrations to be done. And if I allow you to use them and then someone gets them from your book and uses them, he says, I've just lost control of my work.
Yeah.
And that's what this is really, what it was really all about. And I totally understood that. And ended up paying Zecharia for the illustrations. And so we were all copacetic, all, let's start over kind of a thing. And it wasn't long after that I think it was the first time I did another lecture with Zecharia was in Zurich.
Ooh.
It must have been 1998, 1999. And so that was the start of several events where I got to be just hanging out with him. And it was really wonderful because, again, to me, he was Zecharia Sitchin, the author, but man, I had him like 5 steps above that. I mean, he was clearly, this was the man, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like personally, okay, this is the first lifetime I've had with Zecharia. I've just had that sense of connection that, okay, maybe we had been had a lifetime together back in Sumerian times or something. And he was always the scribe. He was always the professor type. He was always the one that was the authority, right? Mm-hmm. And there were those that circled around him that were trying to keep the wheel in motion.
I've told several people the story that you had told me, people who were close to him. And, there are so many stories like that because he, if you know the story that he had been working on, what became the 12th planet for 30 years. And right as he was about to publish it in 68 or so?
76.
Well, originally his first book
oh, really?
Was going to be, I think it was 69 or it was going, but anyway, Van Daniken's Chariots of the Gods came out. And Sitchin held off for 6 years because he said, this guy's saying the same thing that I'm saying. So I have to go in and I have to put more facts behind it. So he spent all those other years trying to put it down. And he was forever crushed by that, kind of been beaten to production, so to speak. And he became very conscious of everything that he had. That's why you talk to some people who had videotaped him, and I even have some videotape of him asking for tapes because he would not let those tapes out of his sight, and he just did not want people to run off and to make money off of him or use his ideas. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a wonderful anecdote that you tell there, because it does kind of it kind of explains his personality in a lot of detail.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and he was like I say, I mean, he wasn't a jerk about it or anything. He said, "This is the way it is," and it's like I should have known better to begin with. And after that, I was absolutely fine with Zechariah. Interviewed him on radio programs, and you were never going to be buddy with him, but deep down he had this kind of facade where he wasn't smiling a lot on the outside, but you could tell on the inside he was warming up to you on the inside, right?
And I am interested in that, because I do hear that from time to time, that there were just a few people who were on that inner circle, but they still weren't on the inner circle.
No.
And I'm not sure if you watched the video with Jennifer Stein, who became one of Sitchin's right hands, and how she talked about his wife kind of wore the pants in the family. And it was very, very nice, because part of what I'm trying to do is to paint a picture of the man himself. So I need little personality traits and things like that.
Right.
And could you think of any more right off? Because I sure can use those.
Not right off, no. But again, he just, to me, I didn't idolize him, but I certainly did have him up on a pedestal, because he opened up so much and could see so far as well. And he was a very brave man in what he was doing ultimately. And we just haven't seen the likes of him since then, really.
No. And you had mentioned that you kind of looked at him like a prophet of sorts, maybe a messenger.
I definitely, and I've said this for a long time, that Sitchin to me was a prophet. And that doesn't mean he was always right, but it did mean that he was pointing us in the right direction, right? He was seeing farther and much more clearly than anybody before. And that's what makes him, in my view, a prophet. Not only was he talking about prophets and that, but he was talking about what would ultimately be our future, because as we unravel the mysteries of the Anunnaki, we're talking about our origins. And there's very few people that are really, at least in a popular area, doing the work that Sitchin was doing towards asking those questions.
Yeah. And even today, I mean, I read the books. And I'm sure you read them over and over as well. But I'm at the point now where everything is it's still so relevant, and there's a lot of things that we know that have come to pass since Sitchin's passing that I just have a really good gut feeling about it, and I don't like using my gut for making decisions on what I believe, but sometimes you just really have to. I mean, do you feel that way? Do you inside, do you feel like there's something there? And I always want to ask, especially you guys on the Ancient Aliens, you do believe everything that you talk about?
Not everything, no. I mean, there are some aspects of ancient astronaut theory that I'm not as supportive of as, of course, others, but the overall premise of extraterrestrials interacting in human affairs, totally, I believe that. Absolutely. Yeah. The reason why they did it, there's disagreements there. But then again, nobody knows for absolute certainty what the true story is. We have a pretty good idea what was going on, but I mean, there is definitely room for disagreement and for debate and things like that, and that's healthy. That's really good. But to dismiss the whole notion as people do, no, I don't go along with that at all.
Yeah.
And I'm still avidly studying it, avidly writing about ancient astronaut theory and the Anunnaki, just looking for different levels of truth in it.
Yeah. Do you? I noticed that you had posted recently they had released the Navy videos, and do you believe as much as Dr. Gear does that disclosure is close?
I think it is. I absolutely think it is. And this recent acknowledgement by the Department of Defense that those 3 videos that we've been talking about since 2017, or the Tic Tac one in particular, those are mind-blowing videos. And for the Department of Defense to come out and say they're unidentified, meaning they're not ours, that's astounding.
Have you met Tom DeLonge, the guy who's really pushing this?
No.
Okay. I'm not a Blink-182 fan, so I've been kind of standoffish from. But
To me, DeLonge is a T-shirt salesman. I mean, that's the whole purpose of his business, is to use this story to sell T-shirts, and this is what he tells in his public documents.
yeah,
You know, it's not so much about changing the human race or getting at the truth and all that. No, his documents say, we're going to sell T-shirts, we're going to sell coffee mugs, whatever. And that's what this is really all about. And so,
yeah, this To the Stars Academy that he's got, there's a lot of money that's been sunk into that. And I just didn't know, if that's some actual thing that, that everyone from MUFON's picking up on, and they're like, this is the greatest thing in the world. Not happening, huh?
yeah, I just don't know that a for-profit company should be spearheading disclosure.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have the inside track, what are they going to do? They're going to copyright videos. They're going to prevent other researchers from having access to certain information. This is the legacy of humanity. It's the future of humanity.
Yeah.
Why is a public corporation and some guy selling stock supposedly running this disclosure show? I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me.
What about Dr. Gear? I mean, Stephen Gear. Do you like a lot of things that he talks about, or?
I don't have that great a familiarity with what Stephen Greer does. He, of course, is widely known, and is another one of those kind of lightning bolt type of personalities that is spearheading this. And I just haven't been called to research what he's doing.
I just wish there was a way that we could filter out what is real and what's not. And, I try to go with MUFON and, things that they say, and because it's reputable as far as that goes. But there's just no way, because, you've got people, and I mean, I always liked David Wilcock until he got messed up with Corey Goode. But, now all of a sudden David Wilcock can prophesize, and aliens are talking to him and things like that. And I mean, that's no different than Nancy Lieder at Zeta Talk, who started the whole 2012 debacle. So I just, there's a lot of people that really, they give you guys bad names. I mean, it's like, oh, you're one of those guys. So how do you deal with that?
It's just an unfortunate part of it. And you're right. I mean, I do take some of that personally, because I don't behave like David Wilcock or some of these other people, at least try not to.
Yeah.
And I don't, some people say, oh, it doesn't rub off on you. Well, okay, that's great. My personal thing about disclosure, just one more comment on that, is and I've said this before, and I believe this, that when disclosure really happens, none of the people that are presently talking about disclosure will be involved. Okay. They will be bypassed. It will be at a much higher and more official level than wannabe disclosure messiahs. Okay. That's basically what we've got. And so I don't think any of these people, including myself, probably will even be consulted, will be acknowledged. Nothing. Because it'll be, when it actually happens, it will be so overwhelming and frightening that people will want real solid answers, not someone saying, oh, I told you so, and all this kind of thing. So I think it's going to be a completely different scenario.
Yeah, and that's very believable.
And it is unfortunate that in this field that people have limited vision. They think that if you are doing well, then it's at my expense. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so they have that kind of Heiser approach. I'm going to come in and I'm going to take over. And the way I'm going to do that is not with better information or better presentations or whatever. I'm going to take it from you.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the ruling order of the day. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, they're just people.
Yeah.
And this is how people behave in all spheres. It's not just the UFO disclosure movement. It's in corporate America. It's everywhere. Why? Because there's human beings involved.
Yeah.
If there's human beings involved, there's going to be petty jealousy. There's going to be conspiracies. There's going to be egos. There's going to be all these problems. And it's like, okay, enjoy, just enjoy.
Always snake oil to sell too.
Always. And, it's up to people to use their discernment. Part of this is a lesson in discernment and not being willing to, or being willing to do the work yourself rather than take at face value what anybody is saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, but in closing, I would like to ask you what I always ask everyone. And that is what you do. Now it's not what we consider to be the normal thing. So what does friends and family, and did you ever have to do any explaining as to what you were doing, or did people think that William's gone crazy?
No, in fact, I love it that my friends aren't into this, because then we're friends, but more and more, of course, everybody is opening up to this. And I never had that kind of problem. My family Thanksgiving at our house was all about conspiracy theories and UFOs. I mean, back in the 90s, as far back as then, there used to be a conspiracy newspaper. I can't remember, The Spectator. What was the name? I can't remember. It was a magazine or a newspaper that would get mailed out, and we couldn't wait to get that. So my family was always into this. My father was a maverick kind of lawyer, always working with people on the total cutting edge of science and things like that.
Yeah.
So renegade kind of things, never an issue. Right?
Okay. So you were kind of born into this, and this is kind of the direction you were supposed to go.
Yeah. I didn't have to unlearn or undo anything.
You lucky guy.
Jumped right in the deep end. Right. I know. Well, I totally acknowledge that. Very grateful for that.
Yeah. I'm still unlearning. I'm 55 and I'm still trying to unring those bells.
I talk with people all the time like that. They just are still tethered to those old beliefs and programming.
Yeah. Well, William, I'm gonna let you go, and I know that you've got things to do. I'm sure your wife has a to-do list for you, and a honey-do list. Like all men are wanting to go back to work so they can get some rest, right?
I love doing things with my wife.
You. I'm going to look so bad. My wife's going to go, look. But anyway, I'll be talking to you soon, and I really appreciate the time that you've spent. And then of course we'll air this on Thursday night.
Okay.
And but I appreciate it. I appreciate you helping me out so much.
Pleasure, Eric. Yep. Good luck to you with the project. Look forward to talking with you more about it.
All right. Talk soon.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.